Putin in generally is not very much in favor in Ukraine winning. So literally everything that solidifies Ukrainian effectiveness is generally speaking bad for Putin. But overall, I think the nightmare for Putin would be just seeing the strong Ukraine. I think that's the fact of the matter that Ukraine is existing is already a big problem for Putin.
Greetings everyone. Today our program features a very special guest, a person who helps bring Ukrainians victory closer in the information war, an accidental YouTuber, host and creator of the Ukraine's Matter channel, Georgie. Thank you for joining us today.
Alexander, nice to see you.
At the end of the week, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy made long-awaited appointments, appointing Kirill Budanov, the former head of Ukrainian intelligence, a man who personally conducted sabotage operations in Russia, was involved in covert operations in Crimea, and regularly visits key frontline positions as the head of the office of the President of Ukraine. In your opinion, is this an alarming signal for Putin, especially when intelligence services collide head-on?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Putin in generally is not very much in favor in Ukraine winning. So literally everything that solidifies Ukrainian effectiveness is generally speaking bad for Putin. So having Budanov with a very proven track record, be now in charge as a essentially replacement for Andriy Yermak. So that's definitely a very good signal going forward, especially because Budanov in general is seen quite favorably in Ukrainian society. And in general, people look at him and say like, okay, this guy can achieve things for sure, because definitely the performance of Ukrainian intelligence have been quite stellar. Reducing the Russian operations, if not to a zero, then to very bare bones minimum, resorting to trying to find people through Telegram channels rather than having a lot of the operations on the higher ranks of power. So I definitely think it's a bad signal for Putin, and it's definitely going to help Ukraine strengthen their performance going forward.
In addition to Kirill Budanov, Mikhailo Fedorov was appointed Minister of Defense. Previously, he served as Minister of Digital Transformation and was the architect of the DIA digital service, significantly accelerating and simplifying Ukraine's state system. What strategic bet is Volodymyr Zelensky making with appointment?
Well, it's very clear that he's just reviewing and seeing, firstly, what is popular in society. I think Zelensky really wants to make sure that Ukrainians do trust the government of Zelensky, especially after the hit it took with Yermak. But secondly, it's also about efficiency and bringing new things to the table. Fedorov was somewhat out of the picture for the first kind of the public layer. However, if anyone has been actually following the technology, military developments, and just general innovation of Ukraine, going to some events like Brave One, or just seeing a lot of these general involvement of Ukraine with the drone projects, the AIs, and a lot of other technological innovations of Ukraine, then Mikhailo Fedorov was pretty much always there. It was an omnipresent figure. And he has been a very loud speaker on the internal platforms such as Brave One and others, where he expressed that he would like to see more development, especially in the defense sector for Ukraine. And he was hoping that defense ministry will push towards greater innovation. Well, now he is the defense industry and defense ministry, so to say. So he will have the ability to really boost up Ukrainian innovation. And I think Ukrainian innovation is the strongest part where Ukraine can have a one-up hand over Russia.
Continuing the topic of appointments, we should note that highly effective diplomat Sergei Kislitsa was appointed deputy head of the office of the president of Ukraine. Do you believe that Ukraine's negotiation position will change dramatically in the near future?
No, I don't think so. I think Ukrainian diplomacy has been stellar. It was able to achieve wonders. This is often not recognized by people in Ukraine that I talk to. And a lot of people in Ukraine, they seem to think that just diplomacy is kind of like naturally, everyone is just like we are defending Europe, we are defending the Western world, so everyone is kind of obliged to give everything to us. But in the reality, it's an immense diplomatic work. And so far, under President Zelensky, that diplomatic work has been quite stellar. The ability, like I'll just remind you that the last year we started with Donald Trump administration trying to essentially jump and squeeze Zelensky and his whole cabinet to try to surrender Ukraine. And while the talks about getting something done continued for the whole year, we also saw how the opinion changed. And even some person as well known as Steve Witkoff, being pretty much a parrot of Putin's propaganda, by the end of the year, he was talking more with Ukrainian side and discussing things that needs to be done with Ukrainians rather than with Putin. And I think there is a lot of diplomatic work. Kislitsa has a proven track record of being a very, very savvy diplomat. So I think he will follow through with this, and he will definitely be a very strong addition to go through with Zelensky's vision, because I think the vision is quite clear.
Following up on this question, why did Donald Trump place his bet not on Kit Kellogg, whom he reportedly called an idiot behind closed doors, but on, as he once put it, Comrade Witkoff, a known admirer of Putin?
I think the person that understands Donald Trump, one of is actually Budanov. I've listened to one of his latest interview when he talked, and he outlined very clearly. He says, Americans are interested in what is good for America. Trump, he says a lot of things. Like, if you start listening to Donald Trump, very quickly you start just getting spiraled into this tsunami or whirlpool of just contradictory opinions, where one day he says one thing, then the other day he says something else. A person that he called yesterday an idiot today is going to be representative of America on the world stage. So listening to Donald Trump is pretty not a very reasonable thing to do, let's put it this way. But what is reasonable to understand is that Donald Trump wants to see essentially his America vision being realized. So in his America vision, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, as he likes to portray it, just needs to be over. He doesn't care about Ukraine, he doesn't care about Russia, to be honest, that much. He wants this to be over, he wants this problem to go away. So when Kellogg comes in and says, okay, it's a difficult problem, we need to start talking with this side, we need to start doing a lot of these actions, it sounds very complicated. This is not Trump. He doesn't like complicated. And then Witkoff comes and says, hey, we did something with Gaza. Let me go to Putin. Let me strike a deal with him. I'm going to get you a solution. So in his perspective, Witkoff is offering solution, whereas Kellogg is offering just more actions on our side with no outcome whatsoever, supposedly. And it doesn't matter if in reality what Witkoff is proposing is not going to be an actual solution or it's not going to see the light of day. It's more about the perspective. Donald Trump is all about the perspective and the image. So in the image of Trump right now, they're his team, they're taking charge and they are getting things done, so to say. Despite the fact that unfortunately peace is nowhere near compared to where it was a year ago. So all of these negotiations is just a big old circus.
President Volodymyr Zelensky recently reacted to the US operation targeting Venezuela's dictator Nicolas Maduro. He joked that the United States knows what to do, hunting at another dictator, Putin. Why do you think the US still adheres to a policy of appeasing the aggressor and treats Putin so casually, considering that Russia is no longer the power the Soviet Union once was in fact more of an inflated bubble, unable to conquer a country 28 times smaller. Why hasn't the US taken decisive action against the terrorists in the same way?
Well, because it's very clear why. As I explained, Trump likes the strongmen. He likes seeing people that are in charge. He likes to see people done. Arguably, he's one of the biggest adversary is Xi Jinping. Yet Trump was many times claiming that he admires Xi Jinping, that he's able to rule the 1 billion people country with iron fist. That is the perspective of Donald Trump. He is pretty simple to understand. And here I will defer once again to Kirill Budanov, that stated that if in our confrontation, as Kirill Budanov says, between Ukraine and Russia, who is the strongest? Where are we stronger? Then he listed a couple of areas, like including military, diplomacy, politics, religion, and other kind of key areas of competition between two countries. And he says, like, in which areas are we stronger? And more importantly, if we are stronger, are we projecting that strength? So it's very clear what is happening right now is that Russia is projecting strength in Europe. Trump sees the bickering and discussions that are happening inside of Europe weak, where there is no strong leader, which the whole EU project is essentially in its nature anti-imperialist. It is specifically built so there is never a new imperialist in Europe. That's the whole thing. And that by itself is counterintuitive, that there is no strong leaders in Europe. And Putin, coming as a strong leader, he's able, with the propaganda machine that at his disposal, to project a lot of their power. And Ukraine is the only thing that is kind of challenging Putin's power. Unfortunately, challenging doesn't mean that Ukraine is also projecting that it's stronger than Russia, because it's very hard. And here Budanov kind of hits the nail on the head and just explains that we need to be stronger, that we need to overtake Russia and demonstrate that we're stronger than Russia if we want to get respected. This is the modern world that is being built, the rule and being stronger than your adversary and demonstrate, like project that you're stronger is crucial. That is why it doesn't matter who Russia is, a terrorist state, non-terrorist state, it's all fluff for Trump.
President Zelensky has already announced a new meeting with Donald Trump at the end of the January, where security guarantees for Ukraine are expected to be discussed. In your opinion, can Ukraine realistically hope for long-term security guarantees from the United States and their observance by President Trump of future US president? What should these guarantees look like in practice?
No, definitely not. Ukraine should not trust anyone in the Western world, not Europeans, not Americans, no one. The only security guarantee there is the Ukrainian armed forces. That's it. That's the only thing. And I think President Zelensky and his cabinet understands it very well. Current discussions about security guarantees, that's more of a diplomatic move. It's like that. It is the entanglement that the Ukrainian diplomacy is doing, and we shouldn't really focus on that too much, at least in a substantial sense. The biggest security guarantee there is for Ukraine is just the Ukrainian armed forces and the strength of Ukrainian collaboration and military sector production as well. So that's the only guarantees that Ukraine should be looking out for, and I would consider even getting to move towards the nuclear state. But again, that's I don't think there is a still clear path towards that, but I would definitely consider that it needs to be done.
Let's move to the front line in Kupiansk, Kharkiv region. Fewer than 100 Russian soldiers remain. Clearing operation is ongoing, and according to the spokesperson of the Joint Forces Group, the occupiers are mostly hiding in basements in the central and northwestern parts of the city. At the same time, Russia's high command has reportedly ordered troops to take Kupiansk by February. Russian forces are reinforcing positions north of the city to attempt another infiltration. How do you assess the situation on this axis right now, and what should we expect in the near future?
Well, it depends like what angle you take here. If you take angle of geopolitical, how close Russia is toward achieving its military goals in Ukraine, then taking and retaking Kupiansk is pretty insignificant. So in general sense, Russia is not doing that well on the front line. If we are talking about the specific situation for units that are in the area, how much forces, how much reinforcements, how much ammunition they have, then the Kupiansk grouping is not one of the most priority for Ukraine, but it is getting certain supplies. So overall, I think we shouldn't expect any major surprises, and Russians will try to take it, but I think there is enough of resources there under the command of Mikhail Drapati to at least repel and slow down Russian advances. And if we're taking as like general operations on the front line, I think 2025 will come in a similar vein as 2020. 2026 will go in a similar vein as 2025, with Ukraine generally slowly backing down from some of the key areas, and we might see Russians encroach closer to the agglomeration of Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Konstantinivka, and we might expect also the taking by Russians full control of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. That is different levels. Overall, I think generally speaking, Ukrainian defense operation is doing well, but there are massive structural issues that needs to be addressed. Specifically with the mobilization efforts, the efforts with communication of the actions of military with the society in Ukraine, because right now image of the Ukrainian military in Ukrainian society is not the best and needs to be addressed. And finally, the internal reforms of the military and promotion of the new ways of fighting and adoption of trying to review the current officer corps in the military altogether.
And for final question, do you think the real nightmare for Putin is losing territory or waking up one morning and realizing that even Russian grandmother trusts Ukrainian telegram channels and Western media more than the Kremlin?
It's difficult because Kremlin is doing pretty good propaganda. Right? We can say a lot of things about Russia and what it's doing, that a lot of decision making is not the best. However, in the same way that when you start talking with actual military, you start hearing that the Russian military can be relatively competent with the resources that they're having, that even their technological sector is able to adapt to the situation on the front line and scale up production. In the same sense, we shouldn't underestimate Russia. It's important to make fun of Russia. It's important to make sure that we remember that they're the enemy and they're not as strong as they try to pretend to be. But on the other hand, completely dismissing their specifically propaganda campaign that had significant successes, we shouldn't really do this. But overall, I think the nightmare for Putin would be just seeing the strong Ukraine. I think that's the fact of the matter that Ukraine is existing is already a big problem for Putin. Like, he is very, very much worried about it. The fact that he talks every time about Ukraine and trying to convince himself that they're absolutely and totally winning in Ukraine, very, very sure, like, we're going to be so over with this soon. This is bothering him a lot. So the best thing we can do is continue supporting Ukraine, making sure Ukraine actually wins this and sends a very clear message to the whole world and all of the Russians: don't come back.
Thank you. Today with us, be an accidental YouTuber, host and creator of the channel Ukraine's Matter, Georgie. Georgie, thank you for your thoughts, your analytics, and thank you for joining us today.
It was my pleasure, Alexander. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.